The night's long shadows have dragged you through time and across worlds to kneel here before my worm-eaten throne. I offer you now this one chance to walk away with your lives and your souls intact. Please, tell me our story. From the Canticle of the Dragon. Thus ended in thunder the age of dreams, and began the age of might. When Istar, kingdom of light and truth, arose in the east, where minarets of white and gold spired to the sun and the sun's glory, announcing the passing of evil. And Istar, who mothered and cradled the long summers of good, shone like a meteor in the white skies of the just. Yet in the fullness of sunlight, the king priest of Istar saw shadows. At night, he saw the trees as things with daggers, the streams blackened and thickened under the silent moon. He searched the books for the paths of Huma, for scrolls, signs, and spells, so that he too might summon the gods, might find their aid in his holy aims, might purge the world of sin. We human beings, most of us, think that we know how our lives are going to go. We make plans. We try to find good work worth doing, something that makes us feel satisfied. We try to find someone to love, someone who will love us in return, someone who can see us for who we really are, the good parts and the bad, someone that we can hold on to so tightly that when the night comes, when our empty room is filled with shadows, we'll never have to feel alone. Most of us think that we know how our life, but life so rarely ends up the way we expect it to. Our world is one half order and one half chaos, one half a construct of our own making, and one half wild, hungry, and wicked. Our story tonight begins in the holy empire of Istar at the end of the Age of Might. At this moment in Dragonlance's history, Istar is at the height of civilization, flourishing and prospering unlike any other nation has before it. But there's a growing darkness in the heart of Istar, and that darkness lies in the theocracy that rules it. And so that theocracy controls most of the civilized world. Personal freedoms are being revoked. The wrong words can become a crime. And fear of what the king priest may do next has become normal. King Priest Beldanis, he's reinstated slavery. He's slaughtered most of the wizards of high sorcery and brought low their towers. He has passed the Edict of Thought Control, allowing his Erephaeus, renegade mages with psychic powers, to read the thoughts of civilians and spy on them in their own homes. All of these terrifying changes, they've happened in the span of just a few short years. Of course, most people say nothing about it. They do nothing about it. But they still witness the Inquisition, as those deemed evil by the king priest are punished, and even clerics of neutral gods are dragged from their temples to be crucified and burned alive. There is no more balance, not in this world. Right now, it's a little before noon. We find ourselves at the grand public altar of Hammer Hall. Hammer Hall is a great fortress housing the Order of Divine Light, the king priest's most favorite servants. The fortress is secured behind massive gates and made up of many mansions, each with their own purpose. This place, the worship hall, is the only building that allows outside visitors. Priests and devotees of good aligned gods may come here to pray and to show their loyalty, to prove themselves to the king priest. Sabria Sunishal, you stand upon a clean, almost sterile ivory altar. Bright rays of sunlight spill into the great hall through stained glass windows that line all sides of the room. Each window is painted a beautiful rendition of one of the gods of good, spraying cheery colors over otherwise plain white walls, plain white floors. And behind you, the largest of these stained glass windows shines its heat onto the back of your neck. This window is a platinum dragon that resembles Paladin, the patron deity of the king priest himself. So, Sabria, you look out to a giant worship hall lined with 3 long rows of wooden pews. But the pews are nearly empty. The front 2 walls, the front 2 rows are half full. There's clerics and worshipers there, all devoted to Syrian. In the back of the room, there's a pair of Knights of the Divine Hammer, and they stand there on guard, keeping a cold, silent watch. Everyone here is looking up at you, following your lead in a morning prayer. Sabria, what do you look like? What are you feeling? What are you doing in this moment?
I look serene and completely confident. My eyes scan this majestic space as if it were filled to the brim, to standing room, with worshipers of my God and of the gods of good. In my heart, I know that however many have gathered, that is enough for this day. And so I offer them words of encouragement and a charge of deep faith and conviction. And I occasionally cast my glance toward the knights in the back row, ensuring that I catch their eyes so that they might know that this message is a message for them as well. And unlike many of the other clerics who come to this place and stand in the great pulpit, I pace back and forth along the lower platform and speak conversationally as if I'm speaking to a friend. By his light, the light of Sirion, Lord of Light, Keeper of the Flame, we see all that is, my friends. And in his light, his inner light, we see ourselves for who we truly are. And so, Lord of Light, we pray that out of your eternal flame, which sprang forth the spark of life that is within each of us, that you would kindle that spark in faith, that it might burn so brightly as to pierce through all pretense and dispel the shades of our self-serving self-deception. And so in humility, born of the searing, searching light of truth, may we come before you seeking the purification that only divine fire can bring. And may you purify these lands, even as you purify our hearts. Amen and amen.
You're answered with an amen by the small congregation. The knights in the back watch. There's interest there, but no emotion. They are on their duty. You can't tell if your words were able to reach them or not. In the front row, you do see one of the clerics. She's a pretty young woman, still wearing her training robes, and after she says amen in return, she smiles up at you brightly as you speak. Her smile reminds you of Naji, a little star that's been missing from your night sky for some time. And then you hear a distant rumble, sounds like thunder, and the stained glass windows dim a little, no longer casting such colorful light through to the floor.
As is my custom, I step down off of the platform, not through the doors behind me where the other priests might pass, but down into the crowd and begin to greet those who've gathered. I'm keeping an eye out for her in particular, and passing the same peace to each one, a blessing to each, but occasionally casting a glance up toward those windows. I recognize that many will be looking to me to how to respond to these things. And my heart is a bit troubled. These have been strange days. Nevertheless, I know my pastorly duty, and so I'm seeking to fulfill it for those who've gathered.
You're greeted by each of the congregation, and they turn and greet each other too, and handshakes or hugs, kind words, words of strength and preservation in difficult times. And as they begin to part a little, you see the young priestess in training. She's smiling up at you, and she looks a little timid. She doesn't approach all the way. She takes a single step and then stops.
I close the gap between us and offer her my blessing. Good day to you, child. What brings you here to this place?
She accepts your blessing and offers you her hand, and her smile shines a little bit more, even as the windows continue to darken. And she begins to answer you, but you don't hear her words. You feel a sharp pain. I'm not sure if it's a pain you've felt before. And it's a pain in here and here. And that darkness, as the windows dim and the lightning crashes and the thunder breaks closer, you hear it sharpest inside your own mind. She asks you something, a question. There's worry on her face, but again, you can't hear her.
I try to focus on her as much as I'm able. And yet, I'm increasingly not only distracted but anxious by the fact that something is clearly happening to me, along with these happenings around me.
And as you try to take it all in and understand what's happening, that darkness eats away at the corner of your eyes, of your vision, until there's a bright flash of light and it's gone in an instant. You find yourself in a vision. It's a vision that's strange. You're flying. You're flying above the clouds, and you can see the sun in all of its glory. It burns, but it also holds hope. It also holds faith and promise. Roll me a perception check. And this is where I will mention that because of some fantastic that's a great first roll.
Yes, it is.
You
Syrian be praised.
You also have inspiration and plot armor, thanks to some support from chat from previous weeks. Didn't need it here. Even though the light is blinding, even with the sun fully in your face, your eyes do adjust, and you see something else flying too. It's maybe more hurtling than flying through the air. It's a hammer. It's the size of a castle, a mountain. It's gigantic, and it's glowing with its own light that's separate from the light of the sun, but equally as radiant. And you see it as it begins to tumble forward, downward, and disappear into the clouds.
Am I able to see its trajectory, where it came from, perhaps?
The trajectory would suggest to you that it came from above and is going downward, like it's been thrown almost.
And I recognize that this is a vision, that this is not real.
You can feel the difference. You can feel the slight shift in reality is not reality, but maybe metaphor. You internally, you can recognize that.
I look toward the sun, squinting, but seeking to keep my eyes open if I can. And I instinctively reach up for the small pendant at my breast, a small sun. My lord, what is this that you have shown me?
A ray of light bends around you, multicolored like a rainbow coming from the sun, and as it reaches in front of you, it strikes the clouds beneath you, and like a hole opens up a great space, and you can see through this cover. You can see what lies beneath, what waits below. A great city, a city that even from this distance, you recognize the spires of Hammerhall. You recognize that this city is Istar. And you see too, the hammer, glowing, divine, descending towards the city.
My lord, no, certainly not yet. Mercy. And at this point, I'm seeking to open myself as much as possible to that sense of my God that I've had ever since I was a child, indeed to all of the gods of good. And I'm crying out, mercy, mercy, please, mercy. And I'm trying to wake up, to shake myself out of this vision.
You feel two things. You feel, as you try to force yourself to wake up, that pain, that sharp pain in your head return. You also feel a warmth within you, whether it's yours or the gods. It's divine. That's how it feels. And in this dichotomous moment, the hammer, you can hear its ringing even as it gets further away from you, as though it's in your ear. And as it strikes the city, as the walls come tumbling down, you snap out of your vision. You force yourself awake, and your headache departs. You are where you were before, in the middle of the hall.
I look around quickly. Has anything changed? All is as it was when I left?
All is not as it was before you left. As you look around, most of the clerics, most of the worshippers are gone. They are just not there. It's as though they'd vanished. And you can see, for those that remain, panic, anxiety, another crash of thunder, another flash of lightning at the window, dark shadows now creeping through the corners of the room where sunlight doesn't reach, and a scream goes out. It's a frightened, panicked scream.
I instinctively reach to my waist and recognize that because I've been preaching, my scimitars are not with me. And I begin to rush toward the entrance of this great hall, as I do, passing very close to those two knights who had been there observing. If I'm able to get close to them, am I?
They've started to step further into the hall, not sure what to make of what's going on. There's not panic in their eyes like the others, but confusion.
As I pass near to them, and I'm quite intentional about trying to pass between them as I go, I say, "Send word to the court. I have received a vision. It must be heard. I am off to the Cathedral of Light, but I will return to court shortly."
One of them grunts at you, but does turn and make eye contact and dip his head in understanding. And the last thing that you hear before you push out of the worship hall is a sad, lonely cry. A weeping, a sobbing. There's quiet inside, but as you open the doors, you can hear cries of concern and panic outside. Chaos is taking Istar as something unexplainable, something that will never perhaps be explained has happened to these people. A loss that everyone, certainly every priest who remains in Istar, feels. You rush out to give your warning, but that's where we're going to cut away from this scene. I want to move forward in time just a little bit. So at this point, Kiana, 3 days and 4 nights have passed. It's been raining now for 3 days and 4 nights without reprieve. It's been storming ferociously since the moment when many of the world's clerics disappeared all at once. They blinked out of existence for some unknown reason, vanished in front of the eyes of their friends, their families, their brothers and sisters in the cloth. Averin, you stand outside the great gates of Hammer Hall. The street here is muddy but busy with people. You see the faces of men and women, and it strikes you that there's a disparity there, that the wealthy and the pious hold their chins up, meeting the rain with proud and powerful faces. But most of the poor and downtrodden look like pale ghosts in comparison, drained of emotion, bereft of hope. Right now, what does Averin look like? What does Averin do?
Averin has her cloak pulled up, and she's trying to match those of the downtrodden, as that's the easiest way to slip by unnoticed. And so, always keeping an eye on the people just out of the corner, just watching them flicker past her. She just keeps everything close to within herself, as she always does.
As you move through the muddy street, filled with people, tell me, what has the past 4 days been like with Averin? Has she visited this gate often?
Averin has done many circles around the streets, so it started familiarizing herself with the busiest places at what times of days, and she had passed by this gate at least 3 times today. Just gone by and gone through, see who's in, who's out, how many people are watching, how many people are just passing through. And sometimes she does these observations, not from the ground, but from higher up, where she can clamber up and just watch.
One thing that Averin would have noticed in scouting this gate and doing circles is that Hammer Hall is very nearly impregnable. It is truly a fortress of modern work. Very difficult to get into and out of without access. And it's that way today, again, the 3rd time you've passed by the gate, that impregnability strikes you. And as you're crossing the street and scouting, roll me a perception check. You see what happens, but you don't hear it coming. A screech and a crack of wood, a wheel breaking on a carriage, a crash of horse and man and wood as it topples over. And at the edge of this crash, a small boy, a street urchin in raggy clothes, possibly an orphan, staring blank-eyed at the crash, at the carriage. You get the sense that maybe they tried to avoid crashing into the boy and succeeded. But right now, people are rushing to try to pull people out of the carriage, make sure everyone's okay. But the boy is just kind of staring there blankly.
I don't approach. Instead, I kind of, again, stick my back up to the closest wall, and I follow the gaze of this boy to its logical endpoint.
He seems to be staring at a figure underneath the carriage, and you can tell this because when the carriage is moved and the figure, a man who's wounded, not dead, is pulled out of it and begin to limp away with help from another. His gaze follows that man. But then it shifts, and you feel his eyes on your eyes. This boy and you locking stares for a moment. He doesn't move.
Everyone just looks at, I just look at him.
Roll me a perception check. A figure is coming up to your side. You can hear, again, the pulling of wooden wheels over stone and mud. You might not have noticed him so intently as your gaze, but you hear it out of the corner of your ears, and it's approaching straight towards where you have your back up against the wall.
I am at the corner of my eye, looking over to see who may be approaching.
You see an old dwarf pulling a canopied cart along with the help of an old gnarled walking stick. The cart appears to be full of what might be merchants' wares, strange trinkets, books, various teas on display, cheeses, breads. There is also a suit of well-crafted leather armor hanging on display, studded with some sort of jewel that seems to shine even in the storm. And he's smiling at you as he wheels his cart ever closer, raising a hand to wave to you.
I kind of nod and then just look away, trying to show as much of my disinterest in buying anything. There is a passing moment of thinking about that leather armor, and then no, too shiny, too noticeable.
And he still approaches, though he does stop a little way from you, not getting too much in your personal space. And there's a pregnated pause before he finally speaks up. He says, I find that a book is just as good of a companion as a dog, and easier to care for, don't you?
I never cared for books, not like I had time to read.
Oh, well, I suppose that maybe I pegged you wrong. I'm Alban Shortlock Hammerfist. Most folks call me Shortlock, but I really do prefer Alban.
I just nod.
Oh.
Really looking at him.
All right, well, I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I don't know what you're doing here, but word to the wise. And he leans in over his walking stick just a little bit, his tone a little more hushed. You should be careful around here. You never know who is one of those Eraphaeus. That's all. You take good care of yourself now.
Don't need to worry about me. Appreciate it.
Oh, well, it's in my nature to worry about folks that remind me of old friends. I hear, and he turns and he takes a bottle. It's a glass bottle with a stopper off of his cart, and he offers it to you. No cost, just a little bit of healing alchemy. Yeah. I have a feeling you might need it.
Yeah, I just very cautiously take it from him. Thanks.
Oh, it's not a problem. It's not a problem, young lady. Please, you take care of yourself and make good decisions. Make better decisions than I did when I was your age. He smiles and nods, and he begins pulling his cart again, moving away from you with the help of his walking stick.
Kind of shake my head a little. And then look back over to where the boy was.
Roll me a perception check as Albin walks down the street accosting other folks the same way that he accosted you, presumably. I will say that Albin was a creation of one of our supporters in chat, Pope Deadpool, character of their design, their idea. I love him. We may see more of him in the future. But as you look onward, you can't see the child on the street anymore, but you feel like you're being watched. And with that 17 in your perception roll, I'll tell you this, your gaze is oftentimes turned upward because you spend time in elevated positions. And as you turn your eyes up, it's not on top of a building that you see this boy. It's in the clouds. It's a phantom face with bright phantom eyes, but his face, without a doubt, there in the clouds for just a moment and then gone again.
Okay. I just end up kind of walking down an alley. Anywhere that has coverage from the sky right now, both for the rain and, well, something watching.
Roll me a stealth check. And as you slink off into an alley, you hear behind you the gates to Hammer Hall swing open with a great groan. You're gone by the time this happens, well hidden in the shadows of the nearby alley, but you are able to see a group of scatus. These are blue-cloaked city guards wearing bronze helms. In the bronze helmets, they're adorned with these blue, long plumes. They march through the open gate and flood into the street in great numbers, and they begin clearing the street of people. They're ordering people to go back to their homes, to go to another part of town, and they're just sort of making their way down the street, helping older folks along, making sure people are obeying them. You see a couple of slightly physical confrontations, but for the most part, folks are happy to oblige. They are the law, and there's not outright violence. You do see 3 of these guards start to branch off from the others, coming towards your alley.
Yep, nope, don't want to confront them, so I'm just gonna keep sticking to the shadows and see if there's any place to hide.
Are you trying to, where are you trying to hide? What sort of cover are you looking for?
My default is to, if there's an easy way up, that's the default way to go. Otherwise, behind crates or something.
So you're just in front of, in the alleyway of a common food store, just a small, tiny homespun market, and you can turn the corner if you wanted to try to scale up to the top of it.
Yeah, I'm gonna quickly duck around the corner and climb up.
As you're ducking around, they're also coming around the corner and entering the alleyway. Make me one more stealth roll. And just like with Allison, I'll mention you do have plot armor and you do have inspiration. You hear a you do hear a wait, stop there. Where are you going? And then the patter of boots faster down the alleyway.
Nope, running.
And where are you trying to run to?
I'm staying away from the main street. So just dodging through all of the side streets that I've gotten to know over these past 4 days.
So you begin breaking out into a full run, weaving your way through the alleyways. They are following as well as they can, and you're silent, you're quiet, but they seem to be on you for a little while. But you are able to lose them, and you can tell because they head in the opposite direction, and their footfalls are no longer audible, and you feel like you've lost them there. And the rain begins to come down harder as you kind of hunker down and wait for 2 storms to pass.
Yeah, I pull the cloak again closer to me and try to make myself as small as possible, while still keeping an eye out and an ear out.
As you stop there for a time, we're going to break away from this scene. Meanwhile, we go to a dark, secret, candlelit room inside Hammer Hall's Church of Paladine. This is a private prayer and study room for the King Priest of Istar himself, Beldinus Pelofero. Though the storm rages outside, it's quiet in here, the greatest light coming from Beldinus himself, holy aura that surrounds him. And the only thing that breaks the silence is the King Priest of Istar. Hi, Greg. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome,
What does
buddy.
Beldinus look like right now? What is Beldinus doing in this moment?
Well, Beldinus is a difficult person to observe, as they are constantly surrounded by a brilliant light. But if one were to be able to peer past the glory, they would see a man, confident in this course ahead, older but determined, and they would see him praying. Lord, strength and wisdom, strength to see that might is required, wisdom to know it must be done, strength and wisdom, but not for me. For you, Lord. I know it's difficult. I know you can't do it. The eradication. You are kind. You are sympathetic. These are not faults. These are what will be needed. But what is needed now, Lord, is me. Bless me, Lord. Raise me up, and I will finish what you cannot. I will cleanse this world. The evil and those that would do nothing, I shall burn them away. I will make it a world where law, order, my law, our laws, reign, and those that would think of evil will be weeded out until happiness grows like flowers in the rain. No longer will be scared of the night. We will embrace it. It will be a time of celebration. Everyone living in harmony, law-abiding. Good. And he drops his head.
Just as nearly every time that you have accosted your god or other gods thus, there's not much of an answer. The shadows at the edge of the room seem to grow slightly, almost as though they are trying to encroach upon your own radiance.
Do you see, Lord? Outside, the storms and the shadows, evil is frightened. My path is just. They fight. They know their end is near. Together, with your blessing, with your elevation of me, we will rob the world of its darkest shadows, of these storms in both the skies and in men's souls. No one will be scared again. Not of anything.
You hear behind you, and there's a familiar figure in the room. You're not sure if he just entered or if he's been there all along. It's Hawk, one of your greatest servants, your personal bodyguard. And maybe he's more than that, too. He's wearing a black suit of noble leather armor, contrasted by his very pale face and his gray, perfect, triangular beard. An ivory-hilted rapier swings loosely from his hip. He sort of raises a hand to apologize without actually apologizing. He says, "My Lord Beldinus, it's time."
Yes. Yes, it is. And he will cross over to Hawk, and he will take the man by the upper biceps and kiss him on both of his cheeks. It is time, my friend. We've waited so long. But it is time. Do you feel it?
Oh, yes, I feel it too, Lord. Come now. The others are waiting for us, and we've cleared the streets for now, but it will only last so long. And he offers a hand to the door.
And he will pass through.
You step out of the room and past a beautiful, fiery-haired, freckled knight. This is Lady Drexa, House Pantheos, one of your other most capable servants. And she bows her head dutifully and speaks, her voice soft and quivering a little, much more excited than Hawk's. "My lord, great Beldinus, did he answer you? Did you hear the voice of Paladine?"
I did, but with the absence of words, the expression of conviction of purpose, our Lord is with us. Our path is just. This will soon be over. This darkness will give way to eternal dawn. And he would take Lady Drex's hands in his own. Do you feel it?
I do. I feel it, great Lord. Thank you. Thank you. And she bows her head dutifully. Hawk approaches from the room behind. "Come now. It's time to gather our retinue and brave the storm. Lady Drexa, please make sure that Kargoth is dressed well for the occasion. He's something of a Slav, that one." He pushes past moving around without actually touching you. But he'll stop at the corner and then again extend his hand. After you, great lord.
And picking lightly his robes up from his slippered feet, he will lead them to glory.
As you walk off together, headed for the gates of Hammer Hall, we're going to cut away from Beldinus and his retinue. And we're going to go back to Sabria. Sabria, it's been 4 days since your world changed, since the storm came, since the true-hearted clerics of Sirion, your friends and family in the cloth, vanished. Many believe this to be a rapture-like event, that the true clerics were taken to the heavens by the gods so that they might be spared the wrath, the ire of the king priest's inquisition. Other people, those devoted to the king priest's beliefs, think this is a sign that evil has corrupted all churches, even the churches of the good gods, and that his prayers to rid the world of evil are finally being answered. Right now, you find yourself back in the worship hall again. The only light that comes through the stained glass windows now is dull, a muted gray. Without color, everything in this room is cold, heartless. You're alone. No one has stepped foot in this hall since the event. No one except for you. Knowing that you are soon to be called on to join the king priest and his order on a mission of prayer to the city's temple to Kirilus. Right now, what brings you here to this cold place? What is it that Sabria is doing?
Sabria, I look very different than I did the last time that I preached and fulfilled my duties in this place. For one thing, she's armed, and she has been almost every moment since the troubling events of 4 days ago. She carries not one, but 2 scimitars, one on each hip. And instead of her formal priestly garb, the golden robes that are recognizable across the kingdom as the garb of the priests and priestesses of Sirion, Lord of Light, she wears clothes that would seem a bit unusual to the people of this cosmopolitan city. She wears a tunic and loose pants over boots. She's wrapped in scarves. And if you look closely, you can see I'm shivering a bit in the cold. I pace back and forth across the platform. I look up occasionally from through the windows, but my thoughts are on the vision that I saw. In my heart of hearts, I know that the wrath of the gods is hurtling toward this city. And I know that I am the only one who can stop it.
You find yourself alone with your thoughts for some time before the doors to the worship hall swing open. And there in the entryway, you see Lady Drexa of House Pantheos, one of the knights of the Divine Order, one of the greatest servants of the King Priest. One of the few people in his court who hasn't met you with cold skepticism. And she enters now, her face looking pensive, sees you, and approaches with a smile, her hand brushing along the tops of each one of the wooden pews as she works her way down towards the altar.
Deep inside, I stifle a bit of anger at her, the lightness with which she enters this holy place. But I smile, as I always do at court. And I feel just a twinge of fear, just a twinge. And yet press through and offer her the blessing of Sirion. Hello, my friend. What brings you here?
She accepts the blessing and smiles back and says, well, you know where we have to go. I'm excited and nervous and scared. Sometimes when it's quiet here, this place calms me. My thoughts have been ever troubled these past few days. So many people gone. I don't know what to think of it.
Does it seem to you to be a blessing, my friend?
At first, I couldn't see it that way. How could it be a blessing for people that I've worked beside my entire life, that I look up to just be gone? How could it be a blessing to not know what happened to them, to not know what it means? But I found in the days past that the answer was in my own heart, in my faith, that these people, they were taken because they had wicked things in their heart. Not all evil looks evil. Not all bad people act badly under the public eye. But I do believe that this is the work of Paladine, that this is the work of the King Priest, that we're making a better world, even if it hurts.
Having made my final attempt to sway her, I nod, and I rest my hand on hers at the nearest pew. It is a great comfort, isn't it, that we remain.
Is that what you believe? Are you comforted? Or do you wish that you were gone too? I know, for me, that first day especially, part of me wished that I could have gone with them.
And yet, if you had, my friend, my sister, you would have missed the glory that is to come. I would not miss that for anything.
I would not either. I'm glad to be here with you. Are you excited to join us today, our retinue? To be so close to the King Priest and his court, that is a true honor. He would not do that if he didn't believe in you, in your purity, in your light.
I am so deeply honored.
Well, perhaps we should go then. I don't want to hold them up, and we've got a bit of a trek ahead of us.
Let's. And I wait for her to lead the way out of the worship hall and into the streets.
She hangs for a moment, almost as though she thinks that you're going to go first, but when she sees that you're waiting, she steps ahead and moves forward, offering you one last smile. Roll me a deception check, please.
I think that I will use my inspiration here.
Oh, all right. she leaves ahead of you. She leaves the door open for you and smiles back over her shoulder.
I follow out into the streets and begin to brace myself for what I know is coming.
You leave together. You head towards the front gates of Hammer Hall, the retinue that is gathered. You're not the last to arrive, but you are one of the last to arrive, and you see the King Priest himself at the front of the gate open. Hawk, his bodyguard, beside him, guarding him, looking around with careful, thoughtful eyes. And behind them, 4 acolytes of the Divine Hammer adorned in white, hooded robes. Lady Drex has gone before you, and so she's a little ahead of you, and she comes up to bring up the rear of the group. And as she does, she sort of mirrors Hawk a little bit. She's a little less shrewd in the way that she's looking around, taken in by the radiance and warmth of Beldinus. But she too is on guard. Where does Sabria go? How does Sabria approach?
I approach cautiously and yet seeking to offer all of the customs and protocols that would be appropriate for such a moment. I've not spent a great deal of time in the presence of the King Priest, and yet I know my duty and my role. I have served in this role of the representative of my church to the court for some time, and so I offer appropriate respect and take my place close to the rear of the retinue. As I pass by the others, though, I'd like to look very, very carefully to see if I can determine which ones are armed and which ones are not.
Roll me a perception check. And I will say I just saw that Sabria just received more inspiration.
I'll roll this straight, I think.
All right. It's not hard to see, even as they move and stand there with the winds blowing and the rain weighing down their robes, that all 4 of the acolytes seem to have some sort of weapon. With a 17, I'd tell you, you could guess it's probably a club or maybe a mace, some sort of bludgeon weapon hanging from their belts underneath their robes.
I note this and silently offer a prayer of gratitude to Sirion for the special training that I've received to be able to use bladed weapons, and almost simultaneously ask forgiveness for my arrogance and guidance as my quest nears its final stages.
Whether it's a sign or something else, the rain lightens up a little bit. One of the lightest it's been since this storm began 4 days ago. And that's when Kargoth finally scrambles out of a nearby outhouse with a bit of a yelp, tripping in the mud once he tries to start catching up. And Kargoth is a small man. He's nearly bald, but for a mess of black hair on the back of his scalp. His face vaguely resembles that of a rat's. And as he catches up to the back, everyone here, Beldinus, is now gathered. The entire retinue of those that you expected. And he hits the back of the group and kind of pushes his way forward, shoulders hunched, taking up a spot right next to you on the other side of you, Beldinus, from Hawk. But he doesn't make eye contact.
It is time. Time to end this and usher in grace.
The acolytes behind you repeat, "Usher in grace," as soon as you say it.
And he will begin to walk head up to whatever elements the storm intends to throw his way, his radiance casting light into the darkness.
A high-pitched but pretty horn sounds from one side of Hammer Hall, and it's answered by a deeper, more bellowing horn, and then another and another, so that 4 horns create a rather beautiful harmony that sounds out through the city as you depart together to leave for the temple of Kirilus. Kiana, you hear this horn from a few streets away where you've hunkered down and hidden in an alleyway. It's probably been only 15 minutes or so since you dodged the local city guard and found yourself a hidey hole.
Upon hearing the horns, there's a little bit of a grin. And standing up and dusting myself off a bit, I turn to the wall I had just had my back to, and I start walking up it with my boots of spider climbing. I can just walk right up there.
You don't even have to try very hard.
No.
You easily scale to the top of the building, and as you pull yourself on top of this ratty, abandoned, maybe once it was an orphanage or some poor apartment building, roll me a perception check. You see on another building, 2 buildings away, the orphan boy perched like a gargoyle at the corner of the building. From the roof, he's looking at you.
No, I don't like that at all. Is he going to be along the way if I'm trying to move towards where the horns are coming from?
You think that you could get around him and avoid his building if you wanted to. There's a few difficult jumps.
No, I want to get to where I'm going as fast as I can, so I'm just gonna... Whenever I get to that building, I'm gonna stay as far away from it as possible.
Okay. Roll me we'll say it like an easy to medium difficulty acrobatics roll. And see how well you do. Pretty well. So you've jumped buildings before, and you have been working your way through this area for the past few days, familiarizing yourself with these streets, these rooftops, the best corners to stand in when you make your jump. And you get to the opposite side of this building that the boy is on. He turns as you land and continues to watch you blankly. He doesn't seem to move.
There's a bit of fear. And I hide as I just look at this boy. I hesitate to say boy. And I just start walking very slowly. See if it starts to keep watching.
Once you take your first step on the back of this roof, he stands up and begins to follow you, matching your pace, not moving quickly, watching you.
I stop. What do you want, kid?
What are you doing here?
Not really none of your business.
I'm curious.
Clearly.
I'm going to follow you. Is that okay?
I don't think so.
You really shouldn't get into any trouble. Not in these times. I've seen many people taken. They didn't know how to stay out of trouble.
Then you should maybe not follow me. And that way you can stay out of trouble.
Roll me an intimidation check.
Not very intimidating. No, never mind.
He stops in his tracks. His gaze breaks away from you for but a moment before it rejoins. And he says, "Go on then. I'll see you again."
Right. Take care of yourself, kid. And I'll turn and leave. And right before stepping off of the building, I kind of just look behind again.
He's not there.
Yeah. I continue on my path, still unsettled.
By the time you reach the main street leading away from Hammer Hall, things have changed a little bit. The retinue, Beldinus led, and you can see him from practically a mile away because he shines so much, is moving down the street, and you see there with him at his side Hawk. They're ahead of you now in the street. Are you moving to get ahead of them? Are you staying on the rooftops? What are you doing?
I'm staying on the rooftops, but as I look down and I see the retinue and I see Hawk, it takes a moment before I taste the blood to realize I've been biting through my cheek. Six months leading up to this point.
Is this the first time that you've actually been able to get this close?
Yes. All other times there's been too many people. And now that I could see my father's stupid face and all its lovely, glorious details.
Beldinus, you continue to lead the retinue with Kargoth on one side and Hawk on the other. Sabria, you are at the rear next to Lady Drexa. The streets are mostly clear, but you do see some poor children and families that have snuck out. They've avoided the city guard, and they're lined up sparsely, but they're there, all reaching for Beldinus's robes as he passes, all trying to touch him, to feel that warmth. And Hawk does manage to hold most of them away, and Drexa comes up along the rear to make sure that nobody's coming behind, basically trying to keep a small crowd from swarming the King Priest. How do you handle this?
As each one approaches the King Priest, I offer a silent prayer for their forgiveness for such sacrilege, the worship of a mere man. But for the most part, I'm doing my best to continue to follow just as I'm expected to do, to continue to play this role until the moment at which I need it no more.
Beldinas, do you make contact with these poor people, or do you continue on?
He does not see them. He sees only his goal. It is so close, and evil is trying to stop him. These poor, though weak and meager, could use his aid, but they could merely be pawns of the Dark Ones, meant to slow him down. He will have none of it.
And so, with the help of Hawk and Drexa, you're able to keep at bay the small crowd, and they still thank you. They still praise your name. They're still so happy to have come this close to you. Finally, you arrive before the temple of Kirilus. It's at this time that the rain stops pouring. It stops raining for the first time in days. And the clouds pull away as quickly as they came to reveal a night sky as black as you've ever seen. The three of you cannot see the white and the red moon, Solinari and Lunitari. Instead, you see only the silhouette of a moon that you've never actually visibly seen, but you know is there. Lunitari, its hidden face eclipsing all light from the moons of goodness and neutrality tonight. And as this is revealed, Allison, Sabria would hear from beside her a shocked, disturbed gasp escape Lady Drexa's mouth.
I lean slightly toward her and whisper, "Courage, sister. All light banishes itself in the presence of his light. Our moment is nearly here."
Thank you. Yes. It's almost time. And she squeezes your shoulder lightly, gives you that same smile as before. And then the gathering continues on, the very short distance left between yourselves and the temple. Averin, roll me one more acrobatics check. Let's see how well you're able to keep up from the rooftops. Pretty well. You're able to track them down almost as quickly as they move. You're on top of them. And you see that they've gathered out front of the Temple of Kirilus. It's a small but ancient structure decorated by many life-size statues of renowned knights and warriors. And there is one greater statue, larger than the rest. You can't really make out the features from the rooftop, but it's there before the wide wooden doors. It's going to be hard, though, from where you're at if they stay here to remain hidden. You're pretty exposed. Do you do anything to hide yourself?
I crouch down, so I'm not standing and contrasted even against the darkness of this particularly strange night. I just kind of lay myself flat.
Flat?
Yeah.
Roll me another stealth check. Your heart is slow. You feel in control of your thoughts, your actions, your awareness of your own body as you lay yourself flat. Down below, outside of the Temple of Kirilus, the retinue, you find yourselves before an impressive statue of Huma Dragonbane himself, now a revered icon for Kirilus, the god of soldiers and warriors who fight evil in the world. Kargoth The priest slips in the mud, but then picks himself up, and he moves with a grace that you haven't really noticed from him before. He moves before the statue, and he kisses Huma's feet. And then he nervously turns, wringing his hands, his shoulders slunched again, to address the retinue. He speaks with a raised voice. I, Kargoth, call upon the light in the sky and the souls of ancient warriors past. Hear my prayer, Kirilus, your bishop and your humble servant. I grant the king priest, Beldinus, right to enter your sacred temple here and to pray to you directly. Please, please, Lord, hear his prayer as you would hear your own priests. I give up my power to the king priest and bow before his great wisdom. He bows his head towards Beldinus.
The king priest would nod towards him, though he doesn't mean it to, per se, much like a master would to a pet, as he approaches the temple and enters.
And as you approach, the doors to the temple mysteriously open without a figure behind them. Perhaps it's divine. Perhaps it's magic, but they open to you and your retinue. And as you enter, Hawk steps forward beside you, but he turns away and takes his place to guard the front doors of the temple and stands there dutifully. The acolytes do follow you in, as does Lady Drexa, keeping pace with Sabria. Sabria, what do you do before the temple?
As we pass through the doors and over the threshold of the temple, I offer a brief prayer of my own to Kirilus. Father of soldiers, I follow another god, one of your brothers, and yet tonight I would serve as your soldier as well. Here in this place, grant me your favor, that I may defend your honor just as I defend the honor of my own God and indeed of all the gods. And show mercy, show mercy, show mercy.
As you finish your prayer, you see that there's only one other still out here, and it's Kargoth himself. He looks torn up about something. You're not sure what, but he's got tears on his face, and you can see them now clearly that it's not raining. And he takes a deep breath and gives you a brief passing glance, and then ascends towards the gate door of the temple.
Will he pass near me? Am I entering ahead of him at this point?
You could move ahead of him. He will pass you if you don't.
I will seek to enter ahead of him, but I'll linger for a moment as I enter the chamber and allow him to catch up, and then lean to him and very quietly, I see your tears, my brother. I too am joyful beyond belief. Come, let us see it done.
Yes. Okay. Do you mind if I just stay here for a moment? Just for a moment. He hangs back just outside the door. Roll me, you can roll me an insight check here if you want.
I do. How about that?
Now that you're this close to him, now that you can look into the whites and pupils of his eyes, you recognize what you see, and it's guilt. He feels a deep guilt.
I turn so that my back is to Hawk, I think. I don't feel as though I need to hide much of anything from the King Priest at this point, because I know his attention is elsewhere. But I turn to him. Forgiveness and redemption can be yours, you know. There is still time. And then I turn on my heel and quickly make my way back toward Lady Drexa and the rest of the retinue.
Just before you break away from him, that look in his eyes turns to something like fear. Just a flash. And after you make your way towards catching up and entering the temple, you hear his footsteps as he comes behind. As you enter the temple, we move back to Avrin. There, flat on the rooftop. You see this happen in pantomime. You can't hear it from your distance, but you see the actions. You see the two priests enter the temple last of all, and you see there before the temple, standing guard, Hawk.
Do the doors close?
The doors do not close. They remain open until both priests are through, and then Hawk himself closes the doors behind. Retakes his post.
Okay. At this point, I kind of shoulder off awkwardly my bow alongside, underneath my cloak, one of the arrows from the quiver, as my eyes don't leave Hawk at all. I just watch his movement, what directions he's looking at. At every moment that I look at him, just this bile that rises back of my throat.
His eyes don't really move upwards to the rooftops. They scan the streets, they stare ahead, and you know him well enough to know that he's very, very sharp, that he's very observant. But he doesn't seem to be looking upwards at you. Roll me a perception check. You hear it behind you, or feel it behind you. Maybe it's that boy again.
He muttered very quietly, "I told you not to follow me, kid."
Avrin?
I roll over for a second. Barely.
You roll over and you find yourself on the rooftop face to face with a gentle, smiling young woman wearing a rain-soaked dress that comes down just below her knee. The dress is decorated by pretty patterns of white and red roses hanging off of thorny vines. And the woman wears around her neck a pendant of velvet and metal. You can see into her face a pale green, veiny face that would be pretty if it weren't so sickly. And as you stare into her big eyes in that moment, you do. You knew it before you saw her. It's her. It's Learly.
At first, there is confusion, then joy, then sorrow. You can't. No, not real, not real, not real. Okay.
Averin, it's me.
No.
It's me. It's me. I didn't think I would ever see you again.
Not. It can't.
She kneels down on the rooftop and slowly extends a hand towards you, palm up. It's me, Averin. What are you doing here? I saw you jumping across the buildings.
There's a part of me that knows this can't be real, that rational part of the brain. But the other just needs to know. And I reach out a hand.
Roll me an insight check. You touch her hand. It's a little cold. Not dead cold, just a little cold. It's been raining. Her dress is wet. But her skin is soft. And despite the changes in her face, despite the sickliness that you see, she feels real. She squeezes your hand. She has tears in her eyes. She brushes some of the hair out of her face and smiles. It's me. I didn't die. But then you were gone. I never thought I would see you again.
I immediately just pull her into a hug, trying to hide the tears that are starting to well up. I never let Lily see me cry.
She's probably let you see her cry a few times, and she's crying now as she embraces you. And she has her head on the back of your hand on the back of your head, and she starts talking. I know what you did, but it's okay. I've thought about this conversation a million times. You freed me, Averin. Because of you, I'm an artisan now, a jeweler. I have a husband, 2 kids, a family. And I know that you didn't mean what you did. I know that you were mixed up in the same thing I was. And I'm just so glad that I can see you now. That I found you here in Istar.
I'm so glad. Maybe the nightmares will go away now.
Oh, my sweet, sweet friend. And she goes to just plant a supportive kiss on your forehead. It'll be okay now.
Maybe.
Roll me a Constitution saving throw. A few seconds after the kiss touches your forehead, you begin to feel woozy. You're familiar with some poisons, and you feel for a moment like you might topple, you might fall, but you don't. It's then in that moment where you fight through your weakness, you see as Lyrily pulls away from you a flash of silver, a dagger in her hand. You see her smile change, her eyes change viciously, but it's still her face.
It's just scramble up to my feet. And I look at this thing wearing Lyrily's face. Who are you?
The question hangs in the air for a moment, and we cut away back into the Temple of Kirilus. Beldinus and Sabria, you've entered now, and the inside of the temple is lit by eternal flaming torches that line walls decorated by coats of arms, suits of armor, weapons used in great exploits and heroics past. The center aisle of this temple is carpeted in bright red and flanked by 2 rows of iron pews. The aisle leads to a grand altar also made of iron, but this iron glows faintly. It has the brightest light in this room besides the king priest himself, and it's flanked by ornamental spears. Up above the entrance, as you walk in, you would notice that there's a small sitting box meant for a chorus of holy singers, but it's empty currently. This temple is empty, it's quiet. You notice a small layer of dust has settled over the room. It doesn't seem like the temple's been used for maybe a week, maybe a couple of weeks. The acolytes and Lady Drexa, Kargoth now coming up behind, gather and bow their heads before the king priest, waiting for him to do what he has come here to do.
The king priest would stride forward, his arms out, his eyes up, but not in piety, not in worship. He is addressing a peer. Kirilus, I have come here to your temple, and I ask for your blessing to do what must be done. You are a warrior. You have supported so many. Support me now in the greatest of battles, the eradication of evil, the eradication of chaos. In the sky, the dark moon seeks to cast fear into our heart, but it has only emboldened me. For I know now that they fear my path. Your blessing I require.
As the king priest has made his way toward the altar and offers this this sacrilegious prayer, I reach up as if to cover my mouth in awe. But as I do, I cast guidance upon myself. Guidance as a spell allows me to add a D4 to any ability check that I make over the course of the next minute. So
you have to maintain concentration. Is that right?
I don't believe it is a concentration
cool.
spell.
All right.
I think it's just a straight buff.
You would feel, as you're praying and casting this spell, a bit of a nudge behind you. And at this point, as Beldinas is praying and you are praying for your own reasons, Lady Drexa has moved up to join Beldinas at the head of this altar. And the 4 acolytes are moving to prostrate themselves in front of him. And one of them is sort of tugging at your sleeve, motioning with his head as though to say, you should join us. Kargoth has also joined them at this point, and he's not prostrating himself, but he is wringing his hands nervously.
I shake myself as if from my awe, and begin to follow the acolytes to take my place and prostrate myself.
I will mention real quickly, because we hit our first goal for the night, we have a straw poll up in chat right now to determine which character, Sabria or Avren, will be protected from corruption at the end of this episode. So please vote on that. And Kiana's got the straw poll up, and we'll get to that at the end of the episode. But you are able to join the rest of the acolytes. And Beldinas, as you finish your first prayer, you hear the distant rumble of thunder again, as though maybe the storm is returning. There's a slight wind through the hall, and those eternal torches that never go out for a moment, some of them are snuffed, and then they light again.
Do you see? They try to stop us. They try to stop me. Your blessing. Now.
As I am nearing Beldinas, I'd like to take a chance. I'm assuming and have assumed for some time that there's some type of shielding magic that protects him. And I'm going to seek to cast Dispel Magic to take down any kind of, to take down this magical shield that protects him.
Beldinas, do you have any protective magic cast over yourself currently?
Just my faith.
But you do feel, and you can roll me if you would like. Let's call it a religion or arcana check. I'll let you choose. You do feel a tingle. You feel something trying to break your concentration, trying to break your prayer. You're not sure who it is, but it's someone here in the room with you. And you're faced with a choice to continue or to stop.
He will turn around. He will keep his eyes elevated, but he is addressing now those around him. As they are kind of spread before him, he would slowly turn, one slippered foot to another, almost in a lazy dance move, as he would continue to address the god upon whose house he is in. He rejoiceth do you see, evil even here. Fear for the change that is to come. And those that would fear the change are part of its corruption. I need your answer. I need your blessing. And I need it. And he looks at everyone in turn. Now.
You both hear a faint, distant chorus. It's like the chorus of a holy singing group, one that might be up in that box up above. There is no one there, but you still hear faint, undecipherable words. And Beldinas, to you, it sounds like the gods are sending their messengers through song to you. It's a beautiful, beautiful sound. For Sabria, it's discordant. It's offensive. It's profane.
I cast Fireball.
Yes, absolutely. Where are you casting Fireball?
Directly at the King Priest.
And standing next to him now at this point, Kargoth and Lady Drexa as well, with the acolytes amongst you, behind you. All right. So we're going to do two things. First off, King Priest and Sabria, both roll me initiative.
Oh.
Second off, Beldinas, go ahead and make me that dexterity saving throw against the fireball. And what is your DC, Sabria?
It's 14.
Oh, that doesn't beat a 14, I believe. That would be a 5.
So the fireball. How does she summon the fire? What does this look like to anybody who observes?
Sabria, who has been very serenely making her way toward the King Priest and toward the altar, stops, and she spreads her feet for just a moment and raises her hands and sights the King Priest directly down between her hands. And then, fire of Sirion, cleanse you. And the fireball erupts from her hands and leaps toward the King Priest.
It explodes directly on the King Priest, and its range burns both Lady Drexa and Kargoth. Kargoth screams with the sound of an animal. It's a high-pitched scream. It doesn't last for long. His smoking husk falls almost immediately and slams into the iron altar. Inside her metal armor, Lady Drexa begins to cook. Roll that damage.
All right, then.
She
31.
opens her mouth to scream too, and you can see that you can't hear her scream. You can see the face that smiled at you, the one that was kind to you, melting inside her armor. Where her skin is visible, it peels away and slips off bone like it's just meat. How's the King Priest react to this? It's your turn next, Greg.
He allows the fire to ripple and burn along his arms and his shoulders, his eyes still elevated to the heavens as if to say, "See?" And as it is my turn, I'm sorry, as it is the King Priest's turn, he simply waves his hand and he will cast Mass Cure Wounds on anybody that has just fallen. They all get 14 back.
So Drexa stirs, though her face is still mostly bone, gets up to her knees, and it's now that he's begun to heal her, that she begins to scream. Now that you can hear her, she's in an incredible amount of pain. Kargoth does not get back up. He is dead as a doornail. He is smoking on the altar. What else does the King Priest do? Does he move? Does he hold his position on the altar?
He simply turns to the altar that is... Describe the altar again to me, if you would, Don.
So it's an iron altar with another one of the statues, this one smaller, but still of Huma, at one end of it, and it's flanked. It has an opening, a step that you can step up onto the altar, but it's flanked by spears that are also iron-tipped spears. They're ornamental in design, but it's a very garish-looking altar.
He would turn, and I know that I have cast this, but if you would allow for a bonus action, he is going to use his movement to topple the altar.
Yeah, roll me, let's see how long it takes you. Roll me an athletics check. So you begin,
yeah.
You get a nice bonus.
It's an 8. So.
Okay. Yeah, you begin to topple the altar, and it's groaning. And again, you hear another crash of thunder, and you can hear now the patter of rain on the iron rooftop. And again, that breeze whips through the hall, and the torches are snuffed for a moment and return. You haven't toppled it yet. Sabria, the 4 acolytes are pulling their maces out from their robes, starting to scramble towards you. Lady Drexa is still screaming on her knees. What do you do? It's your turn again.
I draw both of my scimitars and begin making my way toward the King Priest. I'll take on anyone who gets between me and him, but he is my ultimate goal.
We will say that you will, the front 2 of the 4 acolytes, you'll take attacks of opportunity from them as you push past them. So that's going to be a 21 and a 13.
One of those will hit the 21.
You feel the strike of a mace in the back of your shoulder. You'll take 4 bludgeon damage, but you're able to push past.
Undeterred, still moving toward the King Priest and preparing to attack.
All right. And are you attacking with your scimitars?
I am at this point. Yes, I'm seeing that the fireball, some of the most powerful magic that I possess, has done no damage whatsoever. It's time to try a different approach.
You are able to close the gap to get to the King Priest, and Beldinus, you see her come towards you, scimitars in hand. Do you react or say anything, or are you continuing to try to topple the altar?
He pays an agent of evil no mind. He is
So
divine.
You may attack unabetted. You may go straight towards him. There's no one in your way at this point.
I will attack with both scimitars. The scimitar of Sirion in my right hand, the dominant hand first. And as I raise it up, I'm just walking calmly toward him. As I raise it up, I utter words under my breath, and it flares into a bright light, almost as if magical flame is leaping off of it. And I'll attack first with that weapon.
It's a hit. 14 is a hit.
9 slashing damage.
It would be at this point that the King Priest would simply move away. And as he slides over the top of the altar, he would land on the opposite side, and he would cast Healing Word upon himself.
This is a thing the King Priest can do as a reaction. He heals for 7 of the 9 damage he just took.
I can smell the fear in your heart, pretender.
And
go ahead.
It's at this point that the 4 acolytes, maces out, all rush towards you. They're swinging wildly, messily. They're not trained warriors, but they do all 4 have maces, and they will all attack you. So we have the lowest being a 10, a 13, which is also a miss, a 15, and a 21.
The 15 and the 21 will both hit.
You will take 8 bludgeon damage as they begin to wail on you. And we return to the King Priest himself. Lady Drexa has managed to stand up. She's gripping one of the spears now. She's drawn her sword, but she doesn't look alive. She looks like she should be dead, and she's still screaming. Her voice ragged and hoarse now, as it's Beldinus' turn.
Beldinus realizes that all this is a ploy to keep him from his destiny, and so he turns to the altar, looks to the skies, looks to the sides in this might and grandeur of military prowess, and he calls a column of flame down on the altar itself.
Overtaking the sound of crackling thunder outside, there's the fire from above as it washes down and it burns a hole through the iron ceiling, melting the ceiling. And for a moment, as you look up, Sabria, it reminds you of when you looked down through the clouds, the way that the clouds just parted, so too now does the roof itself. And this column strikes the altar. Sabria, you watch as Drexa is burned up in the fire, standing there. You can feel its flame flickering, biting your face. The heat makes you choke. Beldinus, do you say anything?
I need not your blessing, for it is obvious now you are an agent of the Dark Ones. Your day of reckoning has come.
He speaks to you over the flame, but Sabria, you don't hear words. And in fact, what you see is as this column dissipates, as it starts to break apart and you can see his face again, an inky-like substance begins pouring from Beldinus's mouth. Beldinus, you don't see this. You see none of this, but Sabria, you watch as this tendril, this substance, stretches out across the scorched altar, reaching towards you. Roll me a dexterity saving throw. You're able to push away, work your way past the four acolytes, and you see this thing explode, and it's no longer a tendril but a wave, and it crashes over the four acolytes. You watch as they're swept up into their arms, raising towards you, one of them still taking a swing at you as it's sucked into it, and this wave is crashing towards you, and you have a moment here to decide what to do.
Am I able to get closer to the king priest without touching whatever this is?
I'll let you try another, we'll call it either an athletics or an acrobatics check, but because this thing is coming from the direction of the king priest, it's going to be very difficult. It'll have to be a roll at disadvantage.
All right, I'll take that, and this is where that timely little guidance buff will come in handy. So I will make the roll as athletics.
All right. You are able to
I won't use
get
the
around
buff.
it. Yeah. You're able to get around it. You feel like you could get to him. You're going to have to jump from pew to pew to pew and try to outrun this thing. But if that's what you want to do, then you can push on and get to him.
I do. That's exactly what I do.
And Beldinus, you see her coming. She reaches you, and if you want to attack, I'll let you attack.
Beldinus moves as if the king priest is going to strike, but instead he opens his arms up and simply stares at the heavens. He believes his ascension is at hand.
And Sabria, you reach the king priest. What do you do? This wave is still crashing. It bounces off the walls. It's almost like it's following you.
I attack again with both scimitars, seeking to drive the scimitar of Sirion through the heart of this pretender.
The blade, the first blade, slides through, piercing his body. He's not armored. Beldinus, you feel it pierce you. It doesn't strike you down.
He would reach down and grab the blade itself and pull it from his side that has been split, and he would step away again and cast his own divine word upon himself.
So
As he
you
heals for 8.
yourself for 8 of the 11 slashing damage. And Sabria, you feel him, and he's stronger than he looks. And pull the blade from himself, step away, heal himself. And it's at this point that wave catches up to you. That you've stopped and you made your choice to make a stand, to do what you felt was right. The last thing you see before the shadows wash over you, before you're choking on black something, is Beldinus's face, his body radiant, glowing. Beldinus, you see her vanish. You see the acolytes vanish, much in the way that 4 days ago, many clerics in the world just simply vanished.
As I pass out of this world and, to my knowledge, out of existence, I say aloud, "Bring your wrath, Lord. Bring your hammer."
And the king priest says, "I will."
And in that moment, as you're swallowed by shadow and the king priest is left alone in the temple of Kirilus unanswered, a strange event having taken place, but no answer from Kirilus, we move back to the rooftops outside the temple. Averin, you find yourself face to face with Lyrily, or something that looks like Lyrily. She's got a dagger in one hand, and you're woozy from the poison planted on your forehead by her. For a moment, you don't know whether or not this is real or not real. Ask again your question.
Who are you?
She smiles and takes a step towards you, reaching her other hand beneath the inside of her dress. I'm Lyrily. I am both the flower and the serpent. It's me. Master Hawk's test wasn't just for you. It was for us both. She's advancing towards you.
Don't there. Don't make me do this.
It's funny. I knew that you'd come for me. I was to let it happen. That was my mission. That was my test. We could have been sisters, you and I. But you ruined everything.
I warned you. I felt your heart stop underneath my blade.
Master Hawk knows a great healer.
If we were sisters, Mira. Just go. Don't make me do this again.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Averin. That you didn't do what you were supposed to do. That you made me do this. And she advances step, step, bouncing left foot to right foot. Dagger up. She's coming towards you.
when I realize that she's not listening, I pull out my dagger, the matching one to hers. Except if hers has the rose on it, mine has the serpent. And I prepare myself.
Roll me initiative. Before you have the blade already out, she gets to you. She's faster, more deft than you remember. She's different than what you remember, if it's truly her. And as she pulls the blade out, the dagger in hand, her other hand draws a tonfa, a club made to use as both parry and bludgeon. It seems to be made of some yellow material. You can't really tell as quickly as she's moving. She doesn't have time to attack with both in this round. So instead, she lunges towards your chest with the dagger, just like you once did with hers. And because she attacks first, she has advantage on her roll. She strikes. Now you have a talent. You have a feat that's alert, right? So you're not taking full damage here. You will take 5 piercing damage and make me a Constitution saving throw. You feel as she strikes you in the sternum, the poison coursing through your veins, painful, your nerves racking. 7 more poison damage, but I will tell you this. You're able to shrug off most of the effects, and in the moment, you feel your heart beating faster and faster. You feel yourself fighting the poison out of your system. As with Allison, you have plot armor, so you're not slowed down, not yet. I think you had 10 points of plot armor, so you'll take 2 points of total damage. And she stands there before you, ready to stab and fight again, but now it's your turn.
I have to will myself everything to attack her, but I do.
That's a 12.
Mm-hmm.
So she brings up her dagger and catches it in the corner between her dagger and her tonfa and spins your weapon away. Is that your only attack?
Oh, God. Yeah, I think so.
Okay. She pulls you in close as she's parrying your blade away, and she says, I wish you didn't make me do this. I'm sorry, but let me end it quickly. And now she attacks twice, once striking at you with the tonfa, once striking at you with the dagger. So that'll be a 15 and a 19.
Yep.
You will take 7 bludgeon damage from the tonfa, 5 piercing damage, so that's 12, and make me another Constitution saving throw. You're able to shrug off the effects of the poison this time. She's close to you now, and it's your turn.
Yeah, I am going to pull out my dagger and I just look at her face and knowing what it looks like when at least I last thought I killed her. The last time I saw her. I can't.
Beneath the veins that cover her face, the sickly green hue, it's still her eyes staring at you, and there's something there, some sort of conflict, but your movements are slower, and she is aggressive, and she knocks your weapon away again. and moves to strike twice more. A 12 and a 16.
Now the 16 will hit.
Constitution saving throw as she comes in and once again for a third time with the dagger. I will say, as you shrug off the effects again, that you have some advantages that have come in, some inspirations, and more plot armor. 10 more temporary hit points. She's here. She's stabbing away. You've not managed to hit her so far. What do you do?
All right. Now I again just try once more, just will myself to do this again. Oh, God damn it.
You do have inspiration if you want to use it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll let you use it. Go ahead and roll again.
Oh my God.
Again, she's blocking you at every turn, and there's a guilt. You thought you killed her. Maybe you did kill her. There's a conflicted past there between the two of you, and so far it only seems to be slowing you down. Once again, she stabs you with the dagger. Constitution saving throw. This time you feel it sink into your veins, but again, because we got a donation here for plot armor, you're only going to take 2 total hit points of damage. How are you looking right now? Health-wise, not emotionally.
I haven't quite gotten to bloodied yet, but I'm looking not great.
Roll me a perception check. You hear the crashing of a door open up behind you down on the street. It's the Temple of Kirilus, and just out of the corner of your eyes, you see what looks like water flowing from the door, crashing into the street. It's a dark water, though, and she's coming at you again with a knife. It's your turn.
And where's Hawk?
You do not see Hawk.
Where's the only enemy in front of me? God, okay.
Do you stand and fight?
Yeah.
This time you hit.
I'm gonna use inspiration to do max damage.
I love that. How do you do this, and how much damage is that? That's we will say without sneak attack, neither one of you really have advantage right now, but how much is your max damage?
Not a ton with the dagger, but 7.
Mm-hmm. And again, you hook your dagger into her gut this time, and as she stabbed you multiple times, you feel warm purchase. You feel flesh part in the same way that it did years ago. And they're locked together. She swings again. This time, you have her off balance. She begins to slip. And you're both sideways now against the edge of the rooftop. And it's your turn again.
I want to shove her off the roof.
All right. Give me an athletics.
I think I have 1 more inspiration left.
You do.
Yeah, I'm
Or no. Yeah, you have some. Go ahead and do it.
Not 20.
How do you do this? How do you knock her off the roof?
So with the dagger still in Lyra's abdomen, I look up at her in the eye and say, "You're not my sister anymore. You died that night." And I shove her off, pulling the dagger out.
There's a look of honest surprise in her face. She stares back into your eyes, her eyes wide. And as she falls, slipping from the roof, her hand reaches up and she drops her tonfa to do so. It rattles against the edge of the roof by your feet. She reaches and her fingertips, a little cold, brush the edge of your face. She opens her mouth to talk. As she falls, that rushing black substance crashes upwards and downwards into her mouth, filling her mouth. You see it pulling her into it. She chokes. Her eyes are wide. She's reaching up for you.
Without thinking, instinctively, my hand reaches out.
Do you try to reach her?
I do. Yeah. It's instinctive.
You grasp her hand. She's gripping your arm. Maybe she's scared. Maybe there's something else there. There's terror in her eyes. But the strength of that substance is much greater than yours. And it yanks you with her off the rooftop, down into it. And now you too feel your lungs, your eyes, your ears, your nose filled with darkness. You lose her hand in that darkness for a moment, and then you can't find it again. You can't see anything. You're there for a time, not drowning. And then slowly, the shadows begin to withdraw, and you can see your way again. Avrin, you find yourself in a dark room lit by a rickety chandelier draped in thick spider webs. Learly is gone. Strangely, that weapon that she fought you with is down at your feet. It's a tonfa crafted of yellow bone, inscribed with maybe a skull of some kind.
I might just look around immediately on guard.
Roll me a perception check. You feel disorientated by where you are. You're not sure what this place is. There's still shadows all around you. Slowly, they do continue to recede. More of this dark place is revealed to you. The room you are in is circular. Its walls a series of mirrors. And here with you, you see several other figures. A golden-haired priestess who had been accompanying the king priest through the city, who you saw enter last into the temple. And then you see Hawk, clad in black leather armor, rising to his feet, his cold and calculating eyes find you. In one hand, he wields his rapier, and with the other, he frees from a hidden place beneath his robe, under his cloak, a necklace. It's a necklace that you've never seen before. It's a steel chain decorated with a strange bloodstone. Its crimson hues seem to swirl as you look at it, enticing you, almost entrancing you. And then Hawk speaks. Ah, Havren, I always knew that you'd end up here with me.
Hello, Father. Can't say
Stabria,
the same.
you see this as well.
I raise both of my scimitars into a defensive posture. Where are we? What is this place?
All things in time. All things in time. He takes a step forward. But that's where we're going to end our episode for today. And with that, I will pass it over to the King Priest himself, Greg. Thank you for being here, my friend.
Hey, don't hate me so much. If given the chance to play the King Priest, you would have done it too. It's the total jerk, but I'm awesome. No, I'm joking. It just comes so naturally. Guys, what a great episode. Oh my God. These characters are fantastic. I'm going to go around to them because who wants to listen to the King Priest? Nobody. And so as we zip zap around, let us start with where we ended with the face-off extraordinaire between the fallen priestess. Allison, how are you doing?
That was fun. That was so much fun. I just got to say, it's probably been over a decade, maybe 15 years since I said the words, I cast Fireball. And I like those words. They're good words. I think I'm going to keep saying them. And hopefully they'll be a little bit more effective next time around. I've been so excited about this and feeling my way into Sabria. I really feel as though I know her, right? I feel like she's not just somebody that I can imagine, but she's in many ways she's somebody that I've been, and I don't necessarily mean that in ways that are entirely positive, but I also can't help but be incredibly inspired by the opportunity tonight to be the woman who takes on an evil, arrogant dictator with delusions of grandeur, and does it unflinchingly, and who presses the attack. I only say that because as many of you that know me will know that I belong to a community that has been targeted this week by an arrogant, evil dictator with delusions of grandeur. I found some serious inspiration for fighting the good fight tonight in that. So so much love, so much gratitude. I'm so deeply honored to get to be a part of this thing, and to get to be here and watch you all do your thing. Can't wait till we're all together next week.
I have no quip, no funny segue, because I agree with everything you have just said, and so I will simply go over to Kienna. Kiana, how are you tonight, and how did you enjoy your time in Dawn's Hell?
I just wanted to kill my dad, and then I had to go fight my best friend who I thought I killed a while ago. Things are fine. Things are fine. No, I think somebody in chat was like, "Are you making Kiana cry, you monster?" Be prepared for a lot of that, y'all. I cry a lot on streams. It's not new. And especially with a story like this. God damn. I cannot wait to, be able to delve more into it. And especially Averin, who is a really fascinating aspect of myself, because she's every bit of darkness that I normally hide behind this whole sunshiny smiley thing. So she's real interesting to work out, and this is gonna complicate her feelings and her whole, working through redemption and vengeance. So I'm really excited to play it out and to have everyone together next week on Halloween of all days. It's gonna be kick-ass, and I'm so hyped. And thank you everyone for watching and for being here. Yeah. Oh boy, I'm gonna need a drink after this.
Seriously.
Everybody, links are in chat, and I will just say this because I'm a player, that you are picking this game to bring and start the journey for healing. You and Sir Reardon are going to have some interesting therapy sessions as everything starts dropping and the shit falls from it. I mean, this is an interesting way. This is like guerrilla warfare therapy. I love it, and I couldn't love it anymore. So let's pass it over to our therapist, our head shrinker, Dawn, buddy. I mean, amazing.
Thank you. Goddamn, I loved your characters so much. I loved Sabria and Averin so much, just like the characters last week. I'm glad that now we've gotten to sit with all of them. That just feels so good. And King Priest Beldinas was pretty cool too. Thank you, Greg.
No, he wasn't. No, he wasn't. Okay.
Yeah, but you were cool. You were cool, though, Greg.
You made it look cool. Man, I had such a good time. Thank you, chat, for being so supportive throughout the week. You guys, and if you have questions or if you want to, please go into our Discord, talk to us there, tweet at us. We love that. I love it. Let us know what you think. But thank you for being here, for all of your support for the show. Thank you, Allison and Kiana, for being a part of the story with me. I feel very much that we have a really special collaboration here, and I cannot wait to continue to pursue that week in and week out. That said, I do need you, Kiana, to roll.
Here it is.
Here we go.
Roll me corruption, charisma. Allison, because of the poll in chat, you are protected this episode from gaining corruption.
May the blessing of Sirion be upon you, chat.
Averin, that was not good enough. And I need you, as you come back from being swallowed by Shadow, being willing to kill your best friend again to protect yourself. Maybe you could have run. Maybe you could have made different decisions. But now you've made decisions that you have to live with. And I want you to roll me 1d8 and gain that much corruption. So that'll come into play next week. You'll have a total of 6 corruption. Kiana mentioned next week's Halloween episode. I have a lot of cool things planned. We'll see how it goes. I think we're going to start a little later, but we'll tweet about that. You can follow me at Jonathan Fry on Twitter. I play other games. I do other things, but you're going to hear me talk a lot about this because, man, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love these people. And thank you again for being here.
Awesome, buddy. And yes, next week we will be starting a little later, 9 p.m. Eastern, so we can catch this right in the sweet spot of the witching hour. We want to make sure that we are journeying through Kryn or wherever we may end up sometime in the eaves of the Hallows. And so as we get into there and Don goes back into the laboratory to decide exactly how bad he wants to mess us up next week, everybody, please, as Allison said, 2018 is shaping up to be a real stinker, isn't it? So do us a favor and do your king priest a favor. Please go and follow all of these fantastic people that you see, plus all of the people that are on the entire cast, because you need to surround yourself with light. You need to surround yourself with friends. You need to surround yourself with allies and supporters and people that will simply make you laugh. Because if we have to be in 2018 for the majority of our day, at least whenever we slip away every once in a while to tell these tales around the campfire, we can be surrounded by friends, people that will pick up sword, literally and figuratively, to guard our backs and help us enjoy a moment, this life that we are so blessed with. But until next week, everybody, I'm going to get out of these robes and get some armor back on. It's time to go a-nightin'. Everyone, see you next week. Chat, you were fantastic. Love you all.